Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Here we go. Ready?
There.
Set.
Good to see you.
Good evening. The Design Review Board No.1 public meeting of December 4th, 2008 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided by the table at the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on any specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by calling our Design Review Board hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that all appeals must be filed within 7 or 15 calendar days of the decision date, depending on the type of application. The case planner will announce the length of the appeal period with each case. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Aliano is still not present. Board Member Ellis.
Present.
Board Member Insua.
Here.
Board Member Yu.
Here.
Chairperson Simonian.
Present.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on November 26, 2008. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Are there any cards for oral communications, Chairperson?
I don't see any.
None? None seen. With that, we go to staff announcements. We have one staff announcement. The last item on tonight's agenda, which is case number 2-PDR 2008-050A. This would be for 1588 Glenmont Drive. And thank you. Let the minutes note that Board Member Eliano has joined us now. That this particular case is going to be continued for 1 week. This matter was actually heard by the Design Review Board number 2, and they counted out 4 weeks from that Design Review Board date, thinking that tonight would be the Design Review Board date for DRB2. Unfortunately, because of the Thanksgiving Day holiday, there was a lapse of 1 week. So again, this case for number 1588 Glenmont Drive is being continued just for 1 week so that it will be reheard by board number 2. With that said, I will, yes, Chairperson Ellis?
1135 Elm is also in the packet as being continued.
That was my next, thank you.
Hank, I'm sorry.
No, I
Step on your
really
toe.
appreciate that.
Be quick with us.
You are correct.
Okay.
And again, item D, this would be for 1-PDR 2008-077-A for 1135 Elm Avenue. That particular case is being continued to December the 18th for a period of 2 weeks. So again, this would be continuations for items D and F on tonight's agenda. Now, back to the regular agenda. I'll turn the meeting over to Chairperson Simonian.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Design Review Board 1. We welcome everyone. We are going to start off with a consent item, and I'm wondering if there's any desire by the board to pull it off of consent and to hear it.
I'll move to accept the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. Board Member Aliano?
Abstain.
Board Member Ellis?
Yes.
Board Member Insua?
Yes?
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Chairperson Simonian?
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0.
Wonderful. Our next case
Pictures, too.
is 1-PDR-2008-030-B, which is 503 West Kenneth Road. Mr. Reza, if you would, give us a presentation.
Okay, Chair. Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Design Review Board. The next case item before you is case number 1-PDR PDR-2008-0B located at 503 West Kenneth Road. This project is located in the R residential zone, floor area ratio District 1. This project is exempt from CEQA. This project was last heard on September 18th, 2008, and was given a return for redesign with comments. Would the board like me to go over the project description or jump to the staff comments and the board's comments that were heard on September 18th?
If you would give us the description and also a little bit of background on the project as well.
Absolutely. Okay, Mr. Chair, the project proposal is to construct a 305 square foot addition to an existing 2,576 square foot single family dwelling and a new 470 square foot attached garage. The project also includes to changes the front facade. The location of this project is on the corner of Kenneth and Pacific. The proposed architectural drawings are as follows, and this is what the board heard last September 18th. I believe, just a side note, some of the concerns that were discussed during that previous meeting were some observations had been made that construction had been started on the existing house. I verified with Building and Safety to see what was being done out there is actually part of the scope of work. Yes, the applicants have followed that scope of work. The building permit has not been finalized. It's still in the process of obtaining their final building permit sign-off. But as far as we know, they are going according to plan. There were some questions to windows being boarded up. The homeowner disclosed that the residence had been vandalized, and some secure measures were taken to accommodate the homeowners. Okay. As that said, comments and conditions from September 18th are as follows. First, number 1, provide more details for the proposed windows. While the applicant has not provided additional details for the proposed windows, the drawings indicate fiberglass windows with divided lights recessed into the wall. If the board approves the project, staff recommends incorporating additional conditions such as the requirement of recessed casement windows, exterior muttons, and wood sills to be provided. Condition number 2 from the 18th was to redesign the project entryway. Provide more specific input on the entryway. The proposed design is not appropriate to the Mediterranean style. The applicant has increased the height of the entrance and provided a hipped rather than a gable roof at the entry. Staff recommends a flat roof to be aligned with the cast stone exterior trim course at the second floor line. Condition number 3.
And where would that be, Mr. Reza?
I believe it was not done here, but lowering the entryway so that it somewhat mimics this horizontal line, this horizontal cornice, felt cornice at the second floor. Condition number 3, the style should reflect the importance of the corner it is located on. Unify the design of the project. Revisions incorporated such as removal of the coning and the coins at the corners, and modifications of the fenestration assist a more unified design. Additional revisions are recommended to achieve the stated objective. Condition number 4, remove the coins and surrounds. Reduce the impact of the front door design. The coins and surrounds have been removed and revised. The front door design has been introduced. However, the curtain door should be also simplified to better integrate with the design. Number 6, propose a more appropriate roofing material. Barrel-style roofing is preferred. The applicant has not changed the roof material. The proposed S-tile remains as submitted. Condition number 6, the project needs stripping down, revisit, and focus on materials. The overall project has been simplified. However, the stone veneer has been added at the base on most elevations and appears to conflict with the Mediterranean style. Number 7, introduce divided lights within the fenestration and restyle the fenestration style. Divided lights have been introduced to all fenestration. While the current proposal represents an improvement, this aspect could be further refined. Number 8, the overall design should be simplified. The applicant has eliminated the coining at the corners of the building, resulting in a more simplified design. additional refinements should be achieved by this objective. Number 9, balconies should be more integrated into the design of the residence. Balconies have been simplified, particularly the balcony above the bay window at the front facade, which has been integrated into the bay window element, and the rear balcony, which has been treated in a similar fashion. With that said, as mentioned above, the current proposal incorporates revisions addressed by the board's conditions on September 18th. However, additional refinements can be better made to achieve the board's intents and design that will help unify the design and appropriate for this location. Staff recommends these conditions. Staff has 8 recommendations to also be incorporated into this design. The first condition on staff is all windows and doors shall be recessed into the opening typical of the Mediterranean style. Lights at the rear facade shall be modified to reflect a less horizontal proportion. Center window and balcony door at the south elevation shall be modified to leave space between the window header and roof fascia. Condition number 2, provide additional specifications on a window cut sheet for details. Indicate exterior 3-dimensional divided lights typical for the wood or precast sills for all windows. 3, modified window proportions on the living room window to provide a large picture window with casement side lights. Consider enlarging the window to be more consistent with the predominance of the architectural style. Number 4, modify the entry to employ a flat roof aligned with the second floor coursing, with or without a parapet, consistent with the Mediterranean revival style. Consider an accent window over the entryway as typical with this configuration. Condition number 5, simplify the front door design. Consider removing the half-round elements for a simple glass or solid door with little ornament design. 6, remove the proposed stone veneer to be more consistent with the overall design. 7, roof material shall be barrel-style tile rather than the S-tile proposed. And the last condition that staff has is the garage door should be rectilinear with no rounded corners. The applicant and architect are in the audience. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Reza or staff?
Yeah.
Yes. I think as a point of clarification, when you talk about the project summary, you indicated that the project also includes changes to the, you mentioned front facade of the building. But in fact, I think it's not just the front facade, it's the overall architectural style of the existing house. So I think we should clarify that it's not just the front facade or a facade, it's a complete redesign of this architectural style. I think that helps.
I agree.
And that includes from top down and side to side, from the roof, the existing materials, the windows, the stone. It's just a complete redesign of the house, not just the front, if you will.
I agree.
Okay. And you mentioned, and again, you mentioned that you checked that there has been no changes of the, if you will, of the existing windows, correct? You went to the building department and the boarded up is because of vandalism.
That's correct.
I'm not sure if that's actually true, because this right here is a door. And the only reason to have a door is because you have a deck. So right now it's plywood. These are 2 plywood, and this has been cut from what may have been a window. I need to see the photographs. Been cut to a door for future modifications. So the statement that I think was said that no windows have been modified or whatever, and they've only been boarded up, I believe may not be a true statement. So I think that accuracy, especially on this project, is very important of what's been going there, what's been going on there. Do we have photographs of the existing house as it once existed before the remodel?
Yes, I will frantically look for those pictures. I did have trouble finding them, but I can.
Had them last time.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
Okay,
I'll find them.
Thank you, Gabe. Okay.
Actually, I do have plans of the existing permit, what the scope of work, I have the building set of plans.
I remember we saw those.
If needed, I can pull those up.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for staff? Well, the first speaker is Rafi Gagosian, who is the designer.
Good evening. My name is Rafi Gagosian. My address is 3018 Honolulu Avenue. And by the way, I do agree with Mr. Insua about that door, the opening. It came up at the last meeting that when we had it by mistake, they opened it, and so that they thought that everything is going to go smoothly with the design, and unfortunately it didn't happen that way. So it's our mistake. We apologize that one.
No problem.
So most of the comments from September 18, I tried to incorporate it with this new design. But I would like to go let me put it this way. After the meeting, we had a meeting with the historical planner about this project. And I did a drawing, an elevation, and showed it to him. Totally different than what we submitted it. And he recommended all the changes, and I did all the changes, and then we resubmitted again, which is the one that is on the wall. We didn't have a meeting with the urban planner because we thought that it would be like one meeting would be sufficient enough so that we can have the concept and idea and go forward with that. We didn't have a meeting with the urban planner with the second design that I'm submitting it. And if I go with the comments that the planning department gave us, all the windows to be recessed, all the windows and doors, the exterior doors, they're going to be recessed. And they asked me to give a cut sheet, which I prepared. If the board permits me, I can submit those.
Please do. If you would hand it over to staff.
Yeah, I have two cut sheets. One is from Anderson, and one is from Jadwin. So the Anderson cut sheet is the one that the planning department is requesting it to be used like this one. And the Jadwin we like to use it.
Are they both fiberglass windows?
One is wood.
The Anderson is wood.
Anderson is wood. The Jadwin is vinyl. Or the same style with a
Aluminum clad.
What was the word that you used a minute ago?
Fiberglass? Fiberglass?
Fiberglass. Sorry.
I see. And the planning department is recommending the Geldman fiberglass
Yes.
window? Okay.
No, the planning department is recommending wood.
The wood end, okay.
And the lights, instead of being between the glasses, has to be three-dimensional outside of the glasses, that you can feel it when you touch it. That's what they recommending. The living room window that the planning department is recommending, I have no objection to that one. I can have it with the larger space, like a picture window in the middle and a casement on the sides. And planning department gave us a sketch, which I did it. If the board allows me, I can give it to you so that you can see it, what's going to planning department suggestion on the elevation, how it's going to look like. If you guys allow me, I can give it to you.
Do you have it present with you?
Yes.
Oh, by all means. And when you say planning department, who from the planning department did you collaborate with?
I met with Mr. Reza
I see.
about this. I made 7 members. And the planning department requests that the entry to be flat and lowered matches with the line of the second floor balcony line. The owner prefers to have a taller door, and if it's, they do not object about the concept, but they are requesting it if they can do it a little bit higher so that they have a taller door instead of, and eliminate the top window. Okay. And the other thing, the stone veneer, I have no objection to remove it. I can remove it. And the garage door, rectangular, I have no objection to that one. The only thing that I have a difficulty about item 7, the barrel style roofing material. See, the thing is that the house is existing and the roof rafters are there, and it's not a ridge beam, it's a ridge board. Once I use this kind of a material on that existing roof is not going to carry it because they are heavier than lightweight concrete or S-shaped lightweight concrete. So we have to reinforce the existing roof rafters. We might end up, the engineer might enforce that instead of using a ridge board, we have to use a ridge beam. So that would create a tremendous amount of expense on the owner. So I would prefer to go with the S-shaped roofing material. And finally, everything is whatever the board recommends, I'm willing to accept all the comments and go forward.
Do we have any questions for the designer?
I just have one quick question. The Wenair, is that the, or Gelled Weld?
Yes.
They're all listed as vinyl windows in this.
It
Are
is,
you just showing us the style?
That's the style,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr.
You know
Ismail?
what the exterior framing is? 2 by what?
The wall?
Yes.
The walls are 2 by 6. The
exterior-
existing, yes.
The existing walls are
Yes,
2 by
yes.
6. Okay.
And all the windows and the exterior doors, they're going to be recessed 1.5 inches. And the seal is going to be wood seal.
So just a quick question. So this drawing here is the changes that you made after you met
With
Gabriel.
yes, so I brought this one just to show
With-
you what's
But
going
to address the comments that were made
Yes, sir.
from the
Yeah,
September
yeah.
18th meeting.
And that one, in fact, it's a. I do agree when it's everything is a symmetrical on the building. It fits in perfectly. But my building is not.
Okay.
And I appreciate the planner request about this.
My question is more in particularly with your meeting with the historic
Yes, sir.
department. So who did you meet with?
Jay Platt of the Historic Preservation Planner.
And what was the intent of that meeting?
It was the board, excuse me, it was the board's address at the previous meeting to define an architectural style.
I see.
The applicants were under the impression that they wanted to go for a Mediterranean style. Given Jay Platt's expertise, they felt that they wanted to meet with him so they can be led in an appropriate direction.
Were you present at the meeting?
Yes, I was present at that
And
meeting.
what was Mr. Platt's analysis of the existing style and the proposed Mediterranean style?
He did have concerns. He did make suggestions to remove a lot of the proposed material and to refine it more and to lower the front entryway. I remember that. I do have notes that I can grab
Some
from
of those comments which you went over earlier in your presentation, such as lowering
Correct.
the entry and eliminating the stone and so forth, were a direct result of that meeting.
Yes, sir.
And
To clarify for the board, Jay Platt is an integral part of the Urban Design Studio, and he has, not only does he have terrific education and experience in historic styles and the elements to be consistent around the building, but he also has a terrific design sense. So we draw on him very often, actually, to make certain that the elements that are used are consistent around the building, particularly because that was a concern of the board here. We thought, as Gabe mentioned, that we could really benefit by his expertise in this case.
That makes sense. Ms. Reich, typically, when such a meeting occurs between applicant and the historic planner, do you then have a second meeting with the applicant to perhaps judge and go over the changes that were made from that historic planners meeting?
There aren't independent sequential meetings. Gabe and myself are always continuously present at the meetings as well, so there's a continuity of service provided to the applicant, and we do our best to comment on subsequent iterations. In this case, there was an iteration that was done after I think 1 or 2 meetings that we as staff, including Jay Platt, were helping assist the applicant to respond to the board's comments. And that subsequent piece is before you. We had additional comments when we received this submission that's before you, and those comments were provided to the applicant with a choice to move forward with what's before you or to hold off and address the comments. So they chose to move forward, but as it appears, have provided to you a sketch to take into account the comments that they saw in the report, and to the we always, any conditions, particularly a list of conditions like this, we will discuss with the applicant before putting that in a report and moving a project forward.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to find out. Mr. Aliano, any questions for the designer? Yes.
One other thing. When I met with the historical planner, after the September 18 hearing, and what I understood from the board, which direction to go, so I came up with a design. I did only front elevation, and I took this, which I have it, if the board allows me, I can give it to you.
Sure.
And this is the one that I showed to historical planner, and then he made all the recommendation and changes, and he said that this is too much going on the facade, so I almost eliminated everything that I put on it.
And you ended up with this sketch?
Yes,
the
sir.
one that you handed out earlier. Okay. Very good. Well, I think that certainly addresses all our questions. The next speaker is Anita Assyrian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anita Assyrian. I will be living at the property. I just had a few comments regarding some of the conditions and recommendations that were made in the report. I know in the past couple of months we have met continuously with the staff and the urban designer to modify the design of the house and make these modifications so we can actually get the proposal approved. Honestly, I'm not sure how well the board remembers the initial design of the house, but, you know, we have made numerous modifications, and some have been against our desires of, you know, what we pictured our house to be like. But most of the recommendations that were made, we absolutely cannot comply with, and it's not because of personal preference or the design, it's because of monetary purposes. And, for example, the condition regarding using the wood windows rather than the proposed vinyl or fiberglass windows, I have with me the estimates that we got for both the vinyl and the wood. I don't know if you would like to take a look at that.
Just let us know what the difference is.
It's actually about 7 times more in price-wise, and that's beyond our, beyond our budget, so we can't work with that. I know that there was also the recommendation regarding using the roof material is also something that we cannot comply with because of what Rafi stated. I also have an estimate from a construction company regarding the cost of what it's going to cost us if we need to change the rafters, and that's also beyond our financial capabilities. Some of the other recommendations that have been made, for example, numbers 3, 6, and 8, are conditions that we are more than willing to accept and modify to get the proposal approved. I just want the board members to understand that we're not stubborn or unwilling applicants, who are going to keep coming back to the board because we can't, compromise with you. We have a certain budget that we can work with, and we do understand that the recommendations both the board and staff has made is for our best interest, and we do appreciate that. However, we have owned this house for almost 2 years, and therefore we have been paying mortgage and rent elsewhere for the period of time. I'm a full-time student, and along with my 2-year-old, we just welcomed a baby 2 weeks ago. So there's, thanks.
I was thinking you were. I thought you were.
Yeah, I was the pregnant one.
Pregnant one.
There's really so much we can do. And, we have also looked into maybe getting loans to, accommodate these conditions. And as we all know, the banks aren't too, helpful with the loans. What else? With that being said, I know we're all here for the same purpose. I know you guys are trying to help us, and, the staff is trying to help us to, make the neighborhood and the community look nice without creating an eyesore. We just, there's certain boundaries and limits, that we can't and shouldn't pass. So just wanted the board to take those into consideration.
I'm sorry. Did you?
Yeah, very quickly, Ms. Austrian, when you said numbers 3, 6, and 8, you are okay
Those, yeah, we're okay with making those changes. I mean, things
with the new
like
conditions?
Yeah, with the new
from
conditions.
the September 18th?
No, from the new conditions. I know one of them was regarding the garage door, removing the veneers, and I forget.
Modifying the living room window.
Yes, the conditions that don't really require much, for us to, regarding financially,
Yeah, I was just wondering which
Yeah.
set of conditions. Okay.
So
And a quick question, and actually maybe this is for your architect, has the structural engineer actually come in and said, this roof needs to be changed if you're going to put barrel tile, or is this a presumption on the part of
I'm
him?
not sure.
Is that,
Yeah, we've had.
there has been an engineer
Yes.
who has made that,
We can't have cross-communication.
Okay.
What we could do is have the architect come up
back up.
afterwards
Okay.
for a rebuttal and then
I just
address
was wondering,
some of
because
those.
it seemed a little unclear if that actually had happened or not.
And we could have the architect come up.
Thank you.
and we'll ask.
Did you want me to bring the estimates to the board if you wanted to take a look at that?
No.
Just as a matter of record, anything that the board sees would then become public record as part of the file.
I don't need to see it.
I'll take your word for sure.
Okay. And these were just some of the window brochures. I don't know if.
Well, we already have the
You have
gelled
this.
one.
Okay.
And
I have a question. So you looked at the wood with cladding, metal cladding, and then you looked at the vinyl. But you mentioned something about fiberglass. Which one are these are not fiberglass.
No, those aren't fiberglass. I know initially, in our initial proposal, we had listed fiberglass, if I'm not mistaken, from our September 18 meeting. So those were just the prices that we were comparing.
But have you priced the fiberglass window?
Let's see, I think in the estimate, no, we haven't. No, it's just vinyl and wood.
Right. Okay. Well, because I'll make my comments later, but
Okay.
they are not as high
As the wood.
these.
I mean, I'm personally, not against the wood windows. I would love to have wood windows, but it's just a matter of being able to afford it or not.
So when you say wood, you just mean pure wood with nothing cladding it?
I mean, with whatever that was recommended in the report. I'm not sure exactly what kind of wooding it is.
Just to clarify, I'm reading the conditions, and there does not appear to be a recommended condition for wood windows. That may have been a conversation between the planning staff and your architect when we were shown two different brochures. Which one would you prefer? But that's not a condition that appears in the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Ellis, are you interested in having the designer come up to ask that question that you posted earlier?
Sure. Yeah, bring him up. But
If you would state your name for the record.
Rafi Gagosian. Actually, what happened, they did it, the owner did it on their own. They hired somebody and came, and so that's why they have the estimate how much it's going to cost them.
that was
I
from a
didn't-
contractor to change the roof. But I'm asking, my question was, has a structural engineer
no, I
stepped in and
didn't-
said, gee, this roof won't hold this?
No, I did not. But to answer your question, I had a similar issue before, and the structural engineer reinforced all the rafters.
Okay.
So I had that situation before.
Because it's an asphalt shingled roof?
It is, yes.
It's asphalt, okay.
But you're doing an S shape, you're proposing an
Actually,
S shape.
lightweight, like 5.7.
And so the barrel, how much more weight are we talking about?
Barrel is about close to 12 pounds per square feet.
That's for a regular, not a light.
That's the regular.
The light is pretty similar to the other one.
I was doing a profile right now.
Might
and
be like a 5.7 versus 6 or something. But
I mean, first of all, I would have concerns even from taking an asphalt roof
Yeah.
with this pitch, with the roof board and the rafters probably 2 by 6 at 24. Anything new you put on that type of roof is going to significantly increase, whether it be barrel vault or whether it be S-tile. It's a flat roof, you got a beam, you don't have a beam, you got a board at 24 inches on center. There's concerns, anything you do change. Matter of fact, I would say that even if you put Class A asphalt roof on it today, there's a good chance that the spans wouldn't comply with today's requirements even today, because they didn't engineer it as much back then. So, anyway.
Yes, sir, you're correct on that one. But there is a simple solution for that particular issue, which I have done it before, by putting additional bracing between the rafter and the ceiling
joists.
system. Yes, sir.
Do we have any additional questions for the
No, sir,
designer?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have no more speaker cards. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this case? Well, with that, we'll close the public portion.
Actually, Mr. Chair, I just received something via email from the Northwest Homeowners Association. This is from the director, Philip Keller. Philip Keller expresses concerns on 5 major aspects, 1 being the front entryway, 2 being the windows, 3, the north elevation, followed by the roof tile, and architectural style. He, in summary, suggests that we sincerely feel that the applicant can address these changes in a timely manner. They would be able to bring closure to this project. We wish for them to be able to enjoy their remodeled home as soon as possible while delivering a compatible and lasting design to the neighborhood. I will have copies being made and distribute to the board.
Thank you. Good. So, yes, Ms. Wright? No? Well, we have no more cards, and we have no more items from staff, so we'll start our deliberation over here and our discussions. Mr. Oh, no, I can't see him. He's moving away.
Honest teacher.
Should I start from the left side?
Whatever you like to do, Chair. I'm happy to.
I'll start on the left side. Mr. Aliano. I can't keep on going in. Then we're going to be with Mr. Yu here.
I thought it would work.
Sure, I'll start, no problem.
But you get to go next.
Fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the staff has done a really nice job in trying to identify, it's fairly detailed analysis, and I agree. I would say probably 99% of the comments they made. So I don't want to reiterate and revisit these things. I think the recommendations that they're making here are quite valid. I'd just like to reinforce a couple of things without being redundant. in. Typically, in a house like this, where you're highly stylized and you're trying to make it a sort of romantic-looking building because it has such strong style references, you kind of want to really focus on the details a lot and try to make it as authentic as possible. And there's a lot of areas in the building that are just, to me, they just don't appear authentic. The entry, for example, with the with this appearance of stone, which try to look through the drawing, but there's no indication of that. It's just plaster. It's not even a precast. So if you can't do it the right way, if you can't do it the way it would have been done when this style was sort of prominent. I mean, we're sort of mimicking a style here. This is not really authentic to start with. But since we're going in that direction, if you're going to try to do it that way, then let's do it right. I mean, if you're going to do an entry like that, let's make it out of stone. Otherwise, don't even go there. Make it simpler. Make it a nice plastered entry without all these score lines that are trying to imply that there's the keystone and there's all these different elements of a stone cladding. So the entry and the comments that we got in the letter, I think, are right on as well. I mean, the entry that's the face of the building, and I think that needs a lot of work. I don't agree with the hip roof over the entry. I think that needs work as well. And even the alternate that was presented still is lacking. I think it's too low. There could be some feature behind that because there is a staircase element in there. I mean, that could be quite nice without making it grandiose because it's not a grand house. I mean, it's a nice, fairly, I wouldn't say large and it's not small either, but it's not grand. So you could really get some simple details and make it quite wonderful. So enough about the entry. The other one is the windows, which, the fenestration with any building, but especially when you get into this kind of style, is really important. Try to go 1.5 inches recess may not be enough because you're trying to imply that there's a mass in this building, that there's some depth. And if you really look around, and Glendale, especially, if you go a mountain, just as this little, pretty much most of the mountain has a lot of really nice period architecture that has this kind of style. And when you look at these buildings, for one thing, the plaster is always sort of really nicely done. It's either smooth or has some kind of nice trowel finish. But the windows and the sections of the windows are always fairly nice and substantial. And so I think that needs to be looked at. The vinyl window, in general, they work fine in some buildings, but not here. I just don't think that you will get the same substantial-looking window that you would want to see in a building like this. Plus, it doesn't age well because it's vinyl. It doesn't. It will not get that nice look of a painted window, which is what these buildings had. And I'm not implying that they use wood because wood is a maintenance nightmare. But there are ways to make a window feel like a wood window. And the one in between the vinyl and the wood cladding with metal is the fiberglass, and they do make. Marvin makes a wood. I'm not trying to advertise anybody. There's lots of people out there that do the same thing, but that's the one that comes to mind. They make a wood window with a vinyl exterior, and that vinyl comes from the shop in a white finish that can be primed and painted. So when you paint it looks like painted wood. So you get that. So you can get a nice effect without going through the expense and still have a good section because those windows have a fairly thick section like a wood window would. And on the interior, they're actually made out of wood. So you have a wood window, except that the layer on the exterior happens to be vinyl because of not vinyl but fiberglass for maintenance and for paintable surface. So I would definitely look at that. If you can go with the wood, at least go there.
Just to add your thinking,
Yeah.
they indicated Judd. Never pronounced it. Jay Wen with that one. And there's 5 different types that this manufacturer makes. Everything from what they call a premium vinyl all the way down to a builder's vinyl. So, and each one of them, as you would imagine, has a different sort of profile and design. Right. So just to say Jen Wen, there's a lot still left to be determined
Yeah.
on the nature of the window and its aesthetics. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to.
Yeah, but the thing is about the vinyl window, the way they're made, a lot of pieces are snapped on, and they always have this sort of plastic look. And this is not the house where you want to have that look, I don't think. That's why I'm suggesting if you can't go with the wood, get something that's paintable, so that when you paint it, you don't get that look of a plastic window, you know. So enough of that. I think, and if there's any way that the details could be done so that it's more recessed, it's even better. I agree with the stone comment. I'm not going to say much more about that. And I agree with the roof tile. I think if there's a way to bring a barrel clay tile or something lightweight in barrel shape, I think that would be preferable. I think no matter what you do, like Mr. Innsworth said, you're going to have to do something with this roof. I just don't think that even the S-tile will be able to be enough or be light enough to be able to avoid a lot of the gymnastic that you have to do for the roof framing. What else can I say? I think the front door needs some work as well. The geometries of the front door have this sort of, I guess it's not rooted in the type of style that you're trying to create, and it's way out there. It doesn't have anything to do with this building. So I would work on that. And I agree with the garage door. So a lot of the things that have already been mentioned, I won't go over. But I think I'll start with that. I think I talked about the main pieces, and certainly doable. I think cost is always an issue, but I think you have to make a choice. Do you do a lot with inexpensive material? Do you do less with really good quality materials? I think this is the house where you want to do maybe less and do it really well, and do a lot and do it, with cheap materials.
Thank you. As promised, Mr. Ellis?
I would agree also with my colleague, many of your comments. I think staff and the applicant, you're moving forward in the right direction. The entryway, none of the three choices I've seen so far work. Either the one the last time, the lower one, that works probably to me the least. There's something there. I can't tell you what it is, but it isn't there yet. I'm not so crazy about the garage door. I actually kind of like the mimicking of the curve. Now, I'll look back to the rest of you. I like it better than just the rectilinear one. I think you nailed it on the windows, that it's just not a house for vinyl windows. It needs to have, I'm not crazy on them anywhere, but particularly in this project. And I think the fiberglass would be something for them to look into price-wise. I do understand the price, especially Anderson are probably the top of the line on the wood windows, but there is a way to make it work without going to a plastic window. And I think I had one other. The tiling too is also. I'm a big proponent of standard Spanish, two-part clay tile. If there is a lightweight way to do that, I would certainly look at that before I'd go for the S tile. The S tile is such a tract home look. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Mr. Insua?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I said it before, and sometimes you struggle with homes, and it's probably difficult to work on something for a long, long time and hear statements that doesn't get you what you want, which is your home, your building department, and your permit. And I'm very sensitive and feel for that. And I always try to remember that our ultimate goal is to get you approved, not waste your time, provide you useful information and direction, provide you useful and accurate design, direction, and materials that are consistent with what we try, and to get you going. If you struggle up here, there's often a problem with that, obviously. The last thing I also want personally, I know all of us probably feel the same way, is to get you approved design-wise only to hit a stop, because what was approved isn't what can be designed, and then suddenly you find yourself delaying the project. And I see some of those elements on this project, that even though you may get approval, even if you got approval for it today, I see things that are not consistent with what ultimately will be built out there. The roof could be one of those elements that we talked about. So that's our goal. It's always been my goal, and I know it's our goal. I asked a question that the staff mentioned, that they had indicated that they wanted their windows recessed, and that recessed windows and staff's in there working with you, is indicative of this type of design, the depth of the window. And when I heard that, I started thinking, okay, can that be achieved with what we currently have as framing? The designer indicated that the exterior wall framing is 2 by 6. And I have no quarrel with that or can't question it. I know the house well because I drive by it every day to get to my house. I don't think the exterior framing is 2 by 6, but I can be wrong. But I want to make sure that you're accurately reflecting what you have so that when you get approved and ultimately try to get a permit, you don't stop because it's not what's there, and then ultimately you're back at design review. Don't want that. All the drawings you have, and that's why I asked, staff was kind enough to give me the drawings that you have. And they reflect, not dimensioned, but they reflect graphically the interior framing and the exterior framing. And all indicators show that you have exterior framing that is 2 by 4. Could be wrong, but the drawings show everything 2 by 4. Now, is that a problem for construction? No, it's absolutely no problem for construction in a 2-story structure. But it is a problem if you're going to achieve what staff is recommending, and we're working towards recessed windows. You won't be able to achieve that recessed window because it won't work. You don't have the depth to acquire that. So how do you try to get a little bit more depth? Well, you put a little bit of window surrounds. We don't know what the material for the window surrounds is, but I think both boards have been consistent that we really don't like the window surrounds, whether they be made of stone or whether they be made of ephes or fiberglass. Window surrounds are not really the direction that we have been going for a long time. So we're eliminating the window surrounds, and now we want to achieve depth in the windows. Again, when you look at the drawings, and we can look at your own drawing, which is a floor plan, if you look at floor plan A2, you can see that all the exterior walls have been drawn, what appears in that scale, I know it's been reduced, as a 2 by 4 exterior wall. Okay, now so what does that tell us? Okay, then you go to the manufacturer of the windows, and you look at how they assemble the windows. Both manufacturers assemble the plane of the windows towards the exterior of the house. You see it here. The depth is achieved on the interior. The shallowness is achieved on the exterior. So you're weighting the depth of the window towards the outside. It's a shallow profile window towards the outside. You combine that with 2 by 4 framing, which they show here on this chart, and you now start seeing, okay, how is this window going to be framed? I've been accused a lot, both here and at work, of being detail-oriented. It's my nature, because I've seen a lot of projects go bad, and I don't want yours to go badly. So with this recessed window, which is part of the aesthetics, I don't see how it can be achieved from the documents that have been submitted. It's not achievable. And so there's a struggle design-wise there. So that's a big one there. And if it's a 2 by 6 and you can show it, then that issue can go away and it's satisfied. But from what we have here, both on these drawings and the working drawings, it shows 2 by 4, and mathematically, and the manufacturer, it won't be achieved. And I think, as what I've heard so far, the architectural aesthetics, I think, can be improved. It's lacking in the specific areas, and I think that it's struggling with trying to be well executed. So.
Thank you, Mr. Insua. Mr. Yu?
I think enough's been said about the project. I think that the staff has a very good handle on where the project needs to go when it comes down to detailing as well as some of the other aspects of it. Let's see. One thing that because it seems like, this is the second time that has come to us. It had a whole list of things that we were looking for. And then all of a sudden, once the response has been created for your second design, oh boy, we're going to get kicked back again. I got to come up with a third one before we get kicked back again. I mean, I don't see it as such a bad thing, I guess. I wish you would have done this before, but at least it tells me that you're willing to, change whatever you need to change to get it approved, and you're willing to work with staff. And so I would say that, at least you tried on this one again. But it's closer, but I do agree that the sort of the flat roof element is very stout. It's almost like a rook that's been squished down on there, so it needs work on the proportions. And but it's probably closer and characteristic to the style that you're going for. So I know that there's a lot in here, But I think the staff has a good handle on it, and I would be willing to support it with all the comments that are in there and staff taking care of it. Because I don't think coming back is going to make that big of a difference. Because a lot of it is up to the architect and how much they want to, I guess, comply with the comments that we have. So I'll leave it at that.
Just
Thank you,
for
Mr. Yu.
clarification, we've confirmed the fact that this particular project, because it was submitted initially on May 5th, which was at a time when the new Design Review Board codes went into effect, they have 2 chances before the Design Review Board to be approved. Given that the A submittal was returned for redesign, the B submittal would either have to be approved with conditions, or denied. So there is no return for redesign option for this particular review.
Well,
Thank
it sounds
you.
like you probably have more than approval conditions, in terms of what you were saying, right?
I would be okay with approved with all the conditions that we comply with, yeah. I'd be okay with that. And the whole issue about the wood windows, I think there might have been some kind of miscommunication, because we don't call out for pure wood windows that are exposed to the elements. We've always said a wood window with a cladding of aluminum or, fiberglass.
Right.
And now they're starting to come out with more vinyl ones, the wood windows with the vinyl cladding, so we need to decide how we're going to rule as a board on that, too. Because there is a certain, like Mr. Insua said, there's a level of vinyl now that we need to consider. If we're going to say yes to it, we need to be specific on how we call out for that, so.
Okay. Mr. Aliano, you made a suggestion to Mr. Yu. What was, I missed it a minute ago, you guys.
Well, he was saying that he would be okay with staff kind of
Working.
leaving, approve and let staff handle the detail, which means that's a category of approved with
With
conditions.
conditions, yes.
And very good. And in such a case, Ms. Reich, I guess there would be numerous collaborations and meetings back and forth until such a point where staff felt as though most of the conditions were satisfied.
Yes, we are always available to meet with our applicants as much as they need, and our goal is always to get them through as quickly as possible, but because we tried very hard to be very detailed-oriented with these conditions, and we work with you, obviously, to craft the conditions so that the applicant is clear on what is required, and even if it takes numerous meetings, we don't waver from the stated conditions.
Great, thank you. Well, I concur with this board. There's a lot of comments that have been made. All 4 board members had a lot of concerns, and I too agree with a lot of the comments and conditions that were put forth by staff. And so I think in order for you to go through this project as quickly as possible, I would really listen to both tapes from the September hearing and this hearing and try to accommodate them as much as possible. So when you go to staff with your initial initial take, it'll have most of these corrections on there, and so you'll be able to save some time, because as you know, every time you go and come back, it could take several weeks. And so I again agree with most of the comments made by staff. So I believe Mr. Yu brought forth a question, and it really related to the windows as to the direction that we should give staff, whether it's fiberglass, whether it's wood or clad or whatnot. And the rest, I think, staff could handle through their meetings. Yes?
Mr. Chair, I guess the one I'm still having trouble with is for the entryway to a flat roof design, and if that is what's proposed, then I couldn't support that. So, I mean, I don't know quite how we'd want to handle that with offering staff.
I agree. When I saw that sketch of what was presented with the flat roof, I don't think that's the right approach. At the same time, I don't think staff has seen it either. So
Right.
What we could do is try to make some comments on that, but then there's so many comments, where do we begin and where do we end? But we could make it part of the record that Mr. Ellis had some issues with 11 by 17 that was presented with the flat portion of the entryway as presented raised some concerns. Yes, Ms. Wright.
Yeah, as you can imagine, we struggled with how to provide direction on the entry, and as you see in the staff report, as somewhat reflected in the sketch, we thought, having seen the gable and the hip entry, and not feeling that either one of those, and we have some precedents that we use for this particular style that showed flat roof for the entry. So I have two questions for you. We had considered that perhaps, as you see in the entry as shown, I'm just talking the shape of the entry as shown in the sketch that they provided tonight, there's the horizontal frieze, if you will, called out, and then there's a little bit parapet wall that is above that. If there was, say, an even taller piece that matched the balcony, for instance, it's hard to know without drawing it or seeing alternatives. But would that be something that Board Member Ellis would be open to, or potentially should we help them with look at the other option we thought that might work, is to go with a gable but perhaps not have that decorative half-round window as they showed in the older plan, and maybe lower that a bit.
Well, if I may make a suggestion, being through the September hearing and also today's hearing, I think what would be beneficial is to get a good example of Mediterranean architecture, a book from whether it's Tuscany or whatnot, and literally open the book and go over it with the applicant, and to show them what good examples are, what the right examples are, and what's true and what isn't true, and what are hodgepodge of mixture of styles. And in that way, I think it'll become very apparent. They could see one, visualize an entrance that they like, which works with the style. It's very difficult to go down this path of, as you're struggling with this, it's extremely difficult. And so if we're not getting that feedback from the architect, perhaps we literally lead them to the source and provide some inspiration for them.
That's an excellent suggestion, and it's very often a tool that we use and have used with this applicant. We'll continue to do so. A couple of questions, because I did hear some additions that you might want to add to the conditions that are recommended by staff. Board Member Aliano mentioned the importance of smooth stucco finish, potentially steel troweled. That's not something that's addressed in the conditions. It might be a good addition. So that's one question. Also, the stated conditions in the report do not provide a condition for the material of the windows, because the latest drawings show fiberglass, the fiberglass Geldwin type window being used, and I think we heard from the board that the fiberglass is a reasonable alternative that could be used here. So we did not address it in the condition. If you'd like us to add that as a condition to make sure that it's clear what needs to be used, we're happy to do that. And then regarding the barrel tile, we seem to have heard clearly that the barrel tile is important to the board, and a sense that no matter what the alternative is, whether it be S-tile or barrel tile, the perception is that the challenge for the structure of the existing roof would be the same, and because of that, this board would very much like the barrel tile, a lightweight barrel tile rather than a full clay tile, if that can be found, is acceptable. So we can add that piece to that condition, that a lightweight is acceptable rather than a true clay, as long as it's a barrel tile. So we just wanted to check in to make sure that we understand the intent of the board, and we'll be happy to help the applicant move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, the material for that you presented are actually very nice, I think. I think the colors work. If you choose to go with that stone, I think it's a good stone. So the combination of the colors and the stone are quite nice.
I thought we were nixing stone.
Well,
But stone,
well,
are you
if
talking
they-
about that?
If they decide to, they're going back to rework
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to comment on some of the nicer aspects
Gotcha,
of
okay.
what
No, I
was
just
presented.
remember
Yeah.
stone being gotten a nix there at some point.
You
I
are
thought,
correct, but if you
okay.
choose to use it, it's a nice
Okay.
selection of stone and nice colors and so forth. So I think there's some positive aspects.
I'm sorry, I noticed on the sheet that was handed out tonight, it does say the La Habra stucco equals a smooth finish. That's spec'd on the piece that was handed out tonight, and I think it repeats over to the earlier things.
All right, can I,
Let's just do it quickly, yes.
I know where we're going with this. I think it's a good direction, but here are the things that I feel are important, in addition to what's already been said. The entry needs to be simplified. The idea of this sort of stone effect, I think, needs to disappear. And the gable, I think the direction that Ms. Rake was saying, a gable perhaps might work nicer, maybe with just a simple arch and nothing more than that. So simplify the entry. I would definitely try to stay away from the vinyl, because I don't think you're going to get the effect that this house deserves. Definitely look at fiberglass if that's one direction. Smooth plaster, barrel tile, keep the wrought iron railing, no stone. I think the building could very easily go all the way to the base without any kind of stone. And if you do those things, I think staff will be able to work with them very closely to be able to achieve a nice project. I think it's on its way. I don't think it's necessarily a bad project the way it is right now. It's just that it needs a little more refinement. And I would like to make a comment in addition to that I noticed that I haven't said is this window here. I think if there's any way to, the small window, I think it's a bathroom window, try to work with that and see if it can be less. It feels like a little bit too tight to the eaves, but that could just be.
I think that's included in the recommended conditions.
That's really, I think if we do what the staff recommended and also some of these things that we talked about and the ones that I've talked about, I'm okay with approving with conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Sewell? Yeah, and I don't want to be the bucket of ice water on things. I really don't. But I've been on the board off and on, if you will, since 2003. Things have changed, but I think our mandate from our council members who've elected us, who are commissioned us, and who've been elected officials hasn't really changed. It's to be the board that approves or denies design, not pass it on. I believe that too much here is still, as staff even mentioned here, still needs to be reworked and done to prove to us, the board that's been chosen by the commission, by the council, and elected by the community to make the decision, not their decision, although they're fabulous. That's our commission. I believe too much is here. And I don't want to, because I want to always be consistent from the very first day I sat here, and and I'm very proud to be part of this board. But when I look at the comments that staff made, I think about the last 4, 5, 6 years that I've been on the board, I don't believe that this elevates to the measure that we can turn it over to staff. I think there's too much here. Staff's purpose is to finish the design, tweak it here and there, and be done with it, not to redesign the entrance, minimize the windows, decide whether the roofing material can fit and work, whether the mullions are vinyl or wood, whether we add the stone or remove the stone. That's not their mandate. And with all due respect, I don't buy the notion of a design studio in the city. Design studios are in the community. They're the ones that are hired by the community to design architecture. Our job is to review and approve. So when I look at what we have here, I believe that it goes beyond what we're traditionally have been mandated to look at and approve. There's too much here. And I believe that things have changed and that I'm not a proponent to deny it. That's horrible. But that's the system we have right now. And if we're backing down on what we normally have done for the last 6 years, 7 years that I've been here, because our only measure now is to deny it, so we want to back down on what we have been traditionally doing, I think that's poor practice. I think if we're consistent, if something meets the measure, you get approved. If it's too much, we work with the rules. At least that's my feeling right now. And I say, I want people to do design that's appropriate, not over-expensive, not cost too much, but is designed and done. You can look at a tape today, and you can look hopefully at a tape 3 years from now, and 3 years in the future, and you say, now I know how they approve things, then you design to that. But if we're now moving the target, I think that's bad practice. Anyway.
So make a motion.
Okay. In spite of not...
Before we do that,
Yeah.
what are the implications? I mean, at this point, if we deny it, they basically have to come back with a new application.
Correct.
And it's sort of, what does it solve? Is conceivably they could come back with the same design, they'll tweak it a little bit more. In the past, when we denied a project, it meant they had to come back with a completely different design. But is that still the same new rules?
The new ordinance does not specify. The intention of council was not to have it return for the same conversation over and over again, and that's why they clearly put the two-time limit after much discussion about how many tries there should be. It doesn't preclude them from coming back with the very same design, but the code is silent on that matter.
The applicants, if you do deny the project, they do have the ability to appeal the case to City Council.
They don't have to come back to us.
Pardon?
They don't have to come back.
They do not have to come back to you.
Right.
Well, since we have, the public portion is closed, I'm sorry. Since we have differing opinions as to the direction we should take, I think the best way to handle this is to bring forward a motion and to see how that motion goes through. And then once a motion is made, we could certainly start talking about as far as each other's viewpoints are concerned. So does somebody want to make a motion one way or another?
I'll make a motion. I think with Mr. Insua's comments duly noted, I agree with that. But I think that this project, I think I make a motion to approve with various and extensive comments and conditions that we've set forward for staff to work with the applicant.
No, but these are conditions, they're not recommendations.
Conditions.
And I suppose they can come back to you as many times as they need to until those conditions are met.
Correct. Until they satisfy the urban design.
Right.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay. There is a motion being made to approve the project with conditions, all conditions noted within the staff report, along with the urban designer and all of the board members. This will be roll call. I'm sorry, second by Mr. Aliano. This will be roll call. Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
No.
Mr. Ellis?
No.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
I'd like to take a moment and just address something that, my thoughts on this. I think this is one of those one of the few projects that's really going to test the urban design team. And I say that wholeheartedly, and I say it based on everything I've seen, because we used to deal with a lot of cases that would just come back and forth. And I think a lot of those comments by City Council had a lot of validity, and they certainly had a lot of basis to them, because it would just wear people down. So I think this is a great test for the urban design team, and perhaps done on a private matter as opposed to TV, where everyone could sit down and discuss things freely. Then I'm hoping that the urban design team will prevail and basically
God bless them.
shepherd this project to fruition. Well, thank you. Our next case is 1-PDR-2008-053-A, 1515 Ramaha Vista Drive. And Mr. Joe is our staff person that's going to introduce the project to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. The next case before you is 1-PDR 2008-053-A, located at 1515 Rima Vista Drive, and is located within the R1R Restricted Residential Floor Area District 2 zone. This project is exempt from CEQA. This is the first time submittal for the board's review. The project description is to construct a new one-level detached deck with a total size of 1,223 square feet. The existing property is a two-story, single-family residence and an attached three-car garage. The lot is approximately 31,363 square feet in area and has a downward sloping topography from the north to the south portions of the property. Onto site planning. The proposed detached deck will be located at the rear of the residence and does not involve any modification or expansion of the existing residence. Detached deck will be set back 16 feet away from the closest point of the home and is separated with an open concrete patio. The proposed deck is not visible from the front. However, it will be visible from the adjoining nearby properties and Melville Drive south of the subject property. Onto mass and scale. A variety of angles have been utilized within the design to conform with the topography of the hillside. The detached deck will include exterior finishes to match the main structure, potentially adding visual mass to the existing residence. The architectural style is designed with a feature that mimics the English Tudor style of the existing home. The detached deck will be fully closed with a split-face block to comply with zoning code requirements. Exterior finishes of the deck will include wrought iron railings, brick veneer, stucco, and half timbering painted to match the house. Staff's recommendation is approval of the project with conditions as proposed. The one-level detached deck appears to be consistent with the design guidelines intent for site planning, mass and scale, and design, except for the two conditions. One, the facade of the deck enclosure should be finished with materials to help blend with the surrounding hillside to diminish the appearance of the deck. Two, the adequate landscaping should be provided to integrate the deck with the existing natural surroundings and to soften the appearance. Also to provide a professionally prepared landscape and irrigation plan. This concludes the presentation. The applicant is present in the audience, and I'll be available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. Do we have any questions for staff? No? Thank you. The first speaker is the architect, Franco Naravian.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Franco Naravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204 is my address. I am the architect on the project. Actually, it's a very simple project, just a deck. The challenge was to try to make it not make it blend in and make it not look massive. And the alternative was to try to introduce different levels, and we don't want to do that because it makes the deck less usable, and it's also, there was a concern about safety with the different steps. So I've tried to keep it all one level. But another way to reduce the massing is to introduce the different angles. So that's what I've done. If you look at the plan, it's not your typical deck. It has a lot of different angles. The ends are have that octagonal shape. I have no problem with what the staff is suggesting, to keep it all split-face block or another material that you choose, and keep it all one material. I will say this, the reason I did do the different materials is another way to break it up. I think when you have the middle portion is basically split face, and the two portions that are cantilevered out, I tried to use the timbers with the stucco. But if you want to keep it all one material, I'm okay with that as well. That's all I have to say, unless you have any questions. I think the owners met with the neighbors, and they have a list of with all the neighbors supporting it. So we don't have any opposition from the neighbors.
Great. Do we have any questions for the architect? Mr. Aliano?
Nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I do.
Yes.
I'm just kind of curious. I mean, how can we? Because I think it would be nice to have had at least an elevation or perspective of the house.
We do have a perspective of the house. Oh, of the house. No, we have a picture of
I
the
mean,
house.
a drawing that shows how
With
this
the
thing all
house.
fits in with the grades and all that.
I have a perspective of just the deck, but not the house. We weren't doing anything with the house, so I don't. You kind of have to put the picture with the if you.
But I mean, I think it requires not just but a site plan that shows what you have, but it's sort of minimalistic. All right.
No, it just ends right here,
Right. That's exactly.
and then you have sort of a guardrail.
Right. Well, yeah.
Or is it level that you don't have?
Exactly. Same level as the concrete deck of the backyard.
10-foot wall, basically. The 10-foot retaining wall plus the guardrail.
Don't help yourself.
It looks like.
I got one quick question for you. I know the house tends to be, and I've been by it a number of times, I looked at it this morning, it's dark colored.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of wondering if the brown, was that trying to make it match into the hillside, the choice of the brown colors?
My intention with the deck was to use exactly the same brick and exactly the same wood and exactly the same stucco.
That's on the house?
That's on the house, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't remember seeing brick on the house, but again...
It's very dark brick. It's actually
it's
darker
dark.
than that.
Yeah, okay, I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, because
Yeah.
I look at it and I think of that house being kind of a dark Tudor structure.
I think the sample
Gotcha.
board shows a darker brick, and
It
that's
does.
what...
Yes, match the house. Okay, great. Well, that was be one of my concerns. Thank you.
It will be right here.
Do we have any more?
Look at the color. Who do I know? No, sir, thank you.
I think we have no more questions.
One thing, did you consider stepping it a little bit, or?
Like I said,
How did that happen?
it's a large. I know it's a large deck, but when you introduce steps, the owner had a concern that it would be a safety issue. They're going to have a lot of people on the deck, maybe, and then kids running around different steps, and also it makes it less usable. Every time you introduce the steps, breaks up the deck too much. So,
Right.
and if you think about it, if you step it only, let's say, a foot, 18 inches, doesn't really help us. You would have to have stepped it 3-4 feet, and then it in order to make a real difference in the massing, and then it's too much, I think, for their usability of the deck.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Nancy Panosian.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. I'm Nancy Panosian, and I appreciate your time and consideration of this project. What I'd like, if I may, if you'll permit me, I just have some handouts for you.
Thank you.
Does everybody have a copy? Just wanted to respond to a couple of questions, and Board Member, what you mentioned about a step earlier. I have 3 small children. They're ages 7 and younger. I've already been to the emergency room once with a broken elbow with the middle one, so for us, steps and safety is a very big factor. My youngest is 2, so that is a big concern for us. If you look at the handouts we gave you, at tab number 1, it gives you more of a visual of the house, which is on the top center, and it'll show you where we have neighbors both across the street from us and below us on Melwood Drive. But that gives you, and Mr. Aliano, you'd asked for a better visual of the house, and we wanted to share that with you. I personally went and spoke to each of my neighbors across the street, behind me, and at Melwood Drive below me. None of them expressed any opposition to the project. I explained exactly what we'd be doing. What I have at tab 2 is all the letters from those neighbors and from all the homeowners on Melwood Drive indicating they had no opposition to the project, and I wanted to share that with you. And what I've attached at the balance of the handout, you'll see photographs of other decks in the area, some of which blend with the style of the home, some which don't. I've read the comments and recommendations, and I had 2 requests, if I may. First, our intent was this is a home that has a lot of history in the city. It got a House Beautiful award that I brought with me that you could see from former Mayor Brimberg. And our thoughts were to make a deck that actually does blend with the unique Tudor style of the home. I do understand, though, however, if the wood design that's on there doesn't meet with your approval, we're happy to make it plain stucco, but we thought that would be a way to really make it something different. And the second request I have is if we would be excused from having to hire a professional landscape designer. We've had a landscape contractor who we work with for over 10 years. This is a house that we take great pride in, and if you've driven by it, I think that's very self-evident. And we'd ask, in these times especially, to be excused from that added expense for this project and rely on someone we've worked with for many, many years. And it is absolutely our intent to make it cohesive with the surroundings.
If I may, the language used is provide a professionally prepared landscape and irrigation plan. If you consider the gentleman professional, that's all that,
Very well.
not licensed or, not licensed, just professional. If they behave professionally, that's all that matters as far as I'm concerned.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. And so, we put a lot of time and effort, and we do hope you'll approve it as proposed. And if you have any other questions, with that, I will conclude my presentation.
Do we have any more questions? No. And we do appreciate the package that you provided for us.
Thank you.
It's quite detailed and very nice, and provides good analogs of what's actually there in the neighborhood.
And I think the most important thing is we want to be good neighbors, and our neighbors are supporting us in this endeavor, and that's very, very important, especially the Melwood Drive issue, which is referenced on your notes here. So with that, thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this matter?
I am the neighbor, and I support...
We can't have cross-communication, so you must come up, state your name for the record.
And fill out the paperwork.
And fill out the paperwork afterwards.
Good evening. I'm Asper Davidian, the neighbor, 8833 Misty Eye. Yeah.
Misty Eye, okay.
And actually, I've been in that area, lived here since 1980s, early 81. This house was under construction, and the original owner, and I visited during construction and after that. And this is a very high-quality architecture, the design by Chuck Walton, very nicely done, and the material especially is great. And actually, the deck would be a great addition. That's I will support comments.
Well, thank you for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to come over here and support the project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this project? No? Then we'll close the public portion. Mr. Insua, you want to start our discussion?
Sure. I think that because, and the only thing I'm going to say is I think it's fine, maybe a little big, square footage-wise, kind of, 7 feet wide, maybe a little big would be my only thing, but I like the way that the architect has integrated the wood siding, because I think when you look at it, you'll also see the house beyond, and you'll see how they connect. To eliminate that, I think misses the visual connection to them, which I think you want to do. So that would be my only comment. Retain the design that's where being seen.
Thank you, Mr. Insua. Mr. Ellis?
Yes, I'm certainly have no problem with it. Once the architect confirmed that it was matching, because the colors on the rendering I have here are, as you're, not quite the same, but I was up there this morning on Bellwood, and the thing that struck me is I kind of actually thought, why are we actually even talking about this? Because those houses all face to the view. They don't look back at the hill. It didn't quite seem that the neighbors would have a problem with it, and apparently they don't, as the applicant has shown. I think they've done a nice job.
Thank you. Mr. Yu?
Just a couple of things. On the middle portion where the sort of the block comes up and you have the planters, I'm assuming that it's raised another 18 inches or 24 inches because of the planter, right? I'm just wondering if, because that does add more massing to it than maybe it needs. You could come up and, okay. And another thing is, I do agree. I mean, the sort of the putting in the wood pieces or the fake wood pieces on the stucco to mimic sort of the Tudor. Except I don't see how that sort of the angle that it takes is anywhere on the house. It's sort of the reverse or, the vertical. And so maybe try to mimic that more than, taking sort of the reverse of it. But I would have liked to seen how you have the balconies up here and the detailing of that, maybe take more shape into, because this one almost looks like, some over-the-counter or shelf Home Depot railing that you have, because there's not much detail here. I mean, we're looking at, vertical slats at, 3.5 inches apart or something, so, but maybe a little bit more of that. But, I mean, overall, yeah, I'm okay. If we can get that kind of planting in there, I think it's gonna make a big difference there. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Mr. Aliano?
Yeah, one question, actually. I'm just looking at this. There's a deck there already there, and I'm assuming it doesn't show, there's no landscaping shown, and this is an extension of that deck, which is
Too low.
We can't have cross communication, so, Mr. Aliano, do you want the architect to approach the podium? If you would state your name for the record.
Franco Naravian, the architect. My client I know the way I'm showing it shows concrete, but my client just told me that there will be grass. Nancy, how much grass? How many feet? Between the deck and the concrete deck that's there now and the new deck that we're proposing, apparently there will be some grass. 5 feet of grass. So,
5 feet. Well, I'm sorry, can you show me where?
You could come up, there's actually a pointer next to Mr. Aliano.
between this deck and this proposed deck, I guess there'll be a landscaping strip, and then we'll have access maybe on the sides and then access to the middle. I think it's may be not a straight line. The current, in fact, I think I have a survey. I can look at it. And I thought, what's the point of saving a little bit of landscaping? So that's why I connected it. But I think she's right in that it's not a straight line. There are some landscape areas in there now, because currently it's just the top of slope. There's no railing right now.
So you're relocating the articulation in the deck to the proposed new deck's front, with it going in and out.
Right. Yeah. Well, currently there is no deck. It's just the top of
You're
the
calling
slope.
it deck. It's actually a slab.
Right.
It's on grade slab.
This is not a deck. This is just a.
Right. This.
That's on the second floor.
Right. So here is patio cover above.
Right.
Above.
Right.
So it's out in here. It's out in
exactly.
here.
We're starting from here and going out
Right.
on the
Okay,
existing top of slope.
There you go.
And so in this area, even though people at home aren't,
Thank you. That's right house, right?
Yeah.
but don't touch the screen.
No, I'm
So-
Never touch this.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The steps. You see those steps that were kind of right in the middle.
Oh.
You touched it.
You touched it.
In that drawing, there's a lot of landscaping
The
shown.
hardscape right on this side. It's not this side. All will stay. The deck is actually right there. You see that? You can kind of see the brick or something right there.
Right.
It's that where the thing is pointing. Whoever's doing that, that's the right. That's the right area where the.
Okay, so in other words, there is the second floor patio or deck.
Right.
Underneath is a slab on grade, and this deck is going to be a continuation
Of
of the
that
first
slab.
floor
Right.
slab on grade
Right.
coming out. And these stairs, those curved stairs
Will-
coming up,
Will
are
go away. They're right in the stairs currently are right here, right in the middle of the deck. And if I can address one other thing about the planter, the reason I did the planter was to try to have landscaping that drops down, because the idea was to try to cover as much of it as possible.
Right.
So in addition to having plants that come up, I want to have plants from the top that come down. And so that's why the planter is there, is to, again, break up the railing so you don't see all railing, and then have the landscaping that comes down from the top.
Is there alternative access then to that lower part of the slope once you take out that set of stairs?
No, there is.
Just walk around it.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
slope is
it's
pretty
not
steep.
really.
It's pretty steep.
You start getting-
Anyway, okay.
You got 30
If we're required by
No,
fire
I
department,
was wondering if,
make
yeah, I
steps,
mean,
So what's the extent of the concrete that's there now, if that's not it?
You know, I have a survey. I can, if you allow me, I'll.
Please do, yes, sir.
Because I just don't want us to approve sort of that new concrete
That would
area as
have to
well.
become part of the public record, so you can come back and get a copy of it.
Okay, great.
Right now, there's no concrete there.
A little.
There's a little bit, yeah. You can see some concrete up under that balcony.
Let's do that.
So, if you put it right under that. So you see how that's all that? Basically, I went from top of slope. This is top of slope. That's where my deck starts. So all this area is landscaping right now, which we can.
All that's going to be filled.
Well, I thought we would do that because I thought that would give them the most deck. But if you want to make a condition to keep that, then. But I don't see how it makes a difference to anyone other than the
And if it
homeowner.
were fill, you would have to.
No, we're not
design a
filling it.
cantilever
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wall wherein if you're just not.
This is
filling
now
it.
flat area, the landscape flat area,
I
so. Can the owner come up and say something? If you have
Yes,
it?
very quickly. So what is the existing elevation of the concrete level?
995, that's it.
I see. And the top of elevation of, and right here is
Proposed
995?
deck, 995, correct.
This is
Exactly.
995.
Right, so there's no fill.
Okay, I understand.
So is part of the application also to delete all of the steps and everything going down?
Yes, actually, they're already gone.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Thank you. Do you have any other questions for the architect?
That's it, thank you.
I believe
Yeah.
you were the one
I had
speaking, Mr. Aliano.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Narobi. I'm having difficulties with this one. It's a hillside house, and I understand the issue. The issue is there's not enough surface, and you want to extend the paving, you want to extend the site so you have more space. And that's fine. I'm just not sure that I don't know that it's handled the right way. I think, for one thing, if I were to add a deck on a site like this where the slope is actually coming towards it in a sort of concave way, not convex way, I would try to do walls and things that are maybe even battered or concave rather than convex. And I don't know if I'm clear on that, but what I mean by that is you're doing this, where it would be nice to maybe some walls that do kind of this, kind of hug that curvature and don't look so, they don't feel like they're projecting so much. I just think this is a huge, huge projection. I think it's going to be very visible, and I don't think that it's going to be as appealing as everyone thinks it is. The other thing is that there's not enough information to really be able to sort of document this and know exactly what you're going to get. I think this requires either some kind of a bird's eye view sketch that shows how all these things are put together, including footprint of the house, perhaps. The pictures are very helpful, but I think we need a drawing of some sort that sort of documents how it's going to look. And it also allows the designer and the owner to really understand how this is going to feel. I just don't think that I don't think the repercussions of something like this are really quite known. I think it's not an elevational study. I think we have elevations of a wall, of a deck, that's trying to stylistically mimic the house, and that's okay. I have some concerns about that because I think there are elements that don't quite go with the house. But besides that, I think all we have is an elevation. We don't have a real study of what the impact of this deck is. And so I am having real concerns, and I don't really, I think I understand what's going to happen based on what I have in front of me, which is probably why I'm nervous about it. I think this, the house, the setting, the hillside, everything is just hillside-like. And as soon as you put a deck like this, you are doing what everybody else is doing in the area. They're all doing these projections just to expand their property. And this is not a flat site. It's a hillside. And you live with a hillside because, you have minimal outside space usually because of the slopes. And that's the beauty of a hillside site. That you have a house that's more romantically sited with not a lot of the things that you would see in a flat lot. And so I think it detracts. And I understand the owner's intent to try to expand their property, but there's got to be another way to do this without creating so much impact. I just don't agree with what's being done here. So I will not be supporting the project, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Aliano.
I'm sorry. Another thing that's why I asked about the deck is that there'll be so much runoff because now you have paving that's actually being buffered by this wonderful landscape feature, which are trees and shrubs that kind of creating this edge. Once you remove all that landscaping, now you're putting deck, you're putting paving. Even if you put a strip of grass, you still got so much runoff. I mean, it's not really, is that really where we want to go? I mean, we want to minimize runoff. We want to minimize all the stuff that's, that's not considered sort of the thing to do anymore. I sort of want to be environmentally correct, and that's not an environmentally correct solution. So I just want to throw that in there.
Very quickly, I was wondering if Mrs. Panosian, if you would please approach the podium. I know you wanted to indicate something earlier. If you would state your name for the record.
Thank you. Nancy Panosian again. I appreciate your time again and just addressing, Mr. Aliano, some of your concerns. The primary motivation for us wasn't because we wanted more deck space. The primary motivation is that entire side of the house is completely open and exposed to the hillside, and I have a major coyote problem there. So I need to find a way to enclose it at the same time doing something palatable. All my neighbors, everyone on Melwood Drive, has the same issue. So this isn't just wanting more space. This is a legitimate safety concern. I've talked to the Glendale Police Department, to the Coyote Abatement Program. We don't water at night because of this issue. I mean, we've had to make significant changes for that. In terms of the runoff issue, all the water would be rerouted toward more the street side. It wouldn't go down the hillside. And there is nobody beneath me. It's all open hillside. The major issue for me is safety issues. And I have coyotes in my backyard up to my kitchen window, and my youngest is 2. So for me, I need to find a way to enclose it and at the same time make it very palatable and aesthetic in a way at least that all of my neighbors have approved. And one, I think, which would add to the way this house is. You mentioned the shape of the deck, the shape of the pool, the shape of the house, and the shape of the existing patio is all that semi-oval shape. So what has been designed here is an extension of what already exists in this house. But the safety issues, and I didn't mention my major problem with the coyotes, is a big problem for us. And so this was our idea, to enclose it in a way that also is consistent with what the house looks like, and also in a way that would keep our neighbors happy and be considerate of our neighbors. So I wanted to address that concern. I appreciate it.
Is there a solution of some kind of, I mean, you have a lot of landscaping there. Could you put fencing or some kind of another barrier because what prevents animals from actually coming up here, the edges? I can see it here, and they won't be able to jump. But what prevents people from getting around?
It's
animals, not people.
Because it would be fully enclosed. Right now, the property has a chain link fence toward the bottom that they get under and they get over. And because of city guidelines, it can't be a greater height or greater depth to prevent them from coming in there. So this was what we thought of to make it fully enclosed, and the railing would match the railing on the balconies that exist already, which are metal and are more impenetrable to coyotes. The chain link fence doesn't do anything for them. They dig under it, and a lot of times, parts of it, they break through.
You're saying things that are not reflected in the drawings, so let me just...
Sure. I understand, Mr. Nzua.
Okay, so right here, we clearly have the railing that we have.
Correct.
So as the deck ends here, you have an existing railing already here now and already here now?
No, it is completely open. The chain link is further down the hill.
Forgive me. When you do this proposed deck,
Right.
are you proposing to extend the wrought iron railing that we have here on the deck, continuing onto this way, all the way around this way?
Correct, to make it fully enclosed.
Okay, that was one thing that, although you're very talented, you should have put on here, that the railing goes to here and then goes to here, and that achieves the security that you're talking about
Right,
concerning
because-
the deck. Right.
Right.
It wasn't reflected clearly in the drawing.
I
think that's-
apologize.
No,
I
no, no.
apologize. It was the security issue or the safety issue for my
Right,
children's
so the
perspective.
railing then continues
All the way around.
all the way around. And what about over here? And so the deck ends here. How far does the railing go over here to give you that security that you
Well,
discussed?
on that side, there's already a fence on the front that meets to a chain link fence.
So the deck is here. How far does it go? What
Well,
happens now?
there's a, how far does it go out?
Can I approach?
Sure, of course. Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have so the deck ends here, and we clearly see the railing going around. So what happens as the railing hits that point?
You would have to follow the top of the slope.
Okay, and
But
you're...
sorry, Mr. Nzua, what there is actually, the property goes a little bit lower. There's a rose garden below there
Right here.
that already has a
Oh,
brick
that's right.
wall around it.
Right.
And that meets the, do you want me
Right, right.
to approach? I can show it to you. It doesn't really show on that picture very well.
Okay, but here's
That's the road.
here's the walkway. So you're
road
proposing
garden.
for the security you're talking about to continue. How do you prevent coyotes or any vermin, whatever, bad things, to go over there?
Some would argue
But-
that statement.
I like coyotes. Anyway, so what
I guess
happens to
you-
this
you-
railing? This railing that's now
excuse me.
mounted here, how does it continue onto the site?
Well, from here, you wouldn't need a railing for safety, but if the railing is there to keep animals from coming in,
Right.
it would have to follow the top of the slope.
Okay, and that's
Well,
what you're
what-
proposing?
Well, no, what we have right now, Mr. Nzua, is around the rose garden to the left of it is this line of landscaping that's pretty tall and thorny. They can't come through that. So that will stay, that won't change. It's not visible on what you're showing me, but I can show it to you on the color photograph.
Okie dokie. So
that wouldn't
one of the
change.
other measures is to continue the safety issues concerning the bad things.
Yeah, well,
Very
Something
quickly,
I'm
Ms.
trying to
Reich
get
has
used
been
to, the
wanting to
coyote
interject for some time now. Ms. Reich.
Yeah, not to interrupt, and if you want to continue on this route, that's fine with staff, of course. We just wanted to mention that this is the first time staff has heard about this issue of maintaining a barrier against the coyotes. And had we heard that, we would have made certain these kinds of items are clear. We likely would have asked these same questions. So if the board feels that there isn't enough information in light of this new intent by the owner about where the enclosure might exist on the hillside, or if perhaps other alternatives were looked at with this intent in mind, because that was never raised to staff, we do have the option to continue the item for more information if the board needs that. So we just wanted to let you know you have that option.
Thank you.
so essentially, Mr. Nzua, we wouldn't be, to answer your question, it wouldn't be gated from one side to the other. That's very prison-like. It's not aesthetic, and I agree with you. The area of this thick shrub landscaping that we have, that's keeping them out, and I like that, and I like the greenery. It's the other side around the deck right now that's completely open. And my neighbors on Melwood, I mean, it's something we all just have to deal with, and when you have small kids, it just makes you more concerned for that.
Do we have any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members, for your time.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Well, so Mr. Aliano has, of course, stated his viewpoint on this project. We could have some further discussions, or or someone could entertain a motion. Similar to our last case. And we'll let the motion kind of start some dialogue. Mr. Insua?
No, just wanting to listen.
Just want to listen. Very good. Well, I believe I haven't spoken yet, so I'll
sir.
go last. Generally, this board doesn't have a lot of opportunities to look at decks or rear yard additions and so forth. And this happens to be a specific case where I would imagine it was substantial enough where it was brought up in front of this board. I think as presented, the wall is compatible with the house, and so it fits in with the house. I do think that someone that lives in a house like this, that has maintained it the way they've maintained it, is going to take the effort to landscape it and get a professional landscaper to move the project along. And so now that I understand the deck's placement and that it's on the ground level with the existing slab-on grade extended to it, it makes a lot more sense. And I do agree that the drawings could have had more detail, which would have alleviated some of the discussions that took place here. I know that there has been a lot of issues with coyotes. I myself go walking in the northern Glendale areas. In the evening, there's coyotes all the time. It's amazing. They just keep on migrating down in the evening. So I do, I guess, sympathize with your situation. That said, putting that aside, I'm not really letting the coyote issue influence my decision. I think that the deck is well designed and fits in. So I could support the deck as proposed. And so those are my thoughts on it. So we could have some more dialogue as indicated, or move forward with a motion. And Mr. Insua has already indicated that he just wants to listen. So Mr. Ellis or Mr. Yu, are you have any thoughts on this matter?
Boy, I'm making all the motions today, huh?
All right, I'll help you out. I'll move to accept this project with conditions as noted by staff. And I don't believe there was any other condition that the four of you guys could come up with it.
Just match the house better when the guardrail itself, it doesn't match the house at all, so.
Well, I thought to indicate, I guess maybe that would be the condition, that the railing matches the existing.
Because they said that it does, but the
drawings
exhibits don't, so.
Right.
And that's probably their intent. So we could make that a condition.
Condition, right, okay.
To clarify, we've heard from the board that the design of the deck matching the house should be the intent and the goal. That's slightly different than what staff has initially recommended, so we will modify the condition to reflect the board's intent.
I will back myself up. Your concern was to blend it in.
Yes, we had just to explain briefly.
Okay.
In previous the few previous cases that have come before you, we have heard from the board strongly that decks should blend in with a hillside so as not to appear massive or unobtrusive, and that's largely the reason we brought this in front of you, because we believed that direction should be consistent and applied in this case. We're hearing from the board that in this case, the patio, the face of the patio as exposed to the downward sloping street is sufficient and should match more closely the house than is perhaps reflected in the drawings. So we can revise condition number 1 as stated in the staff report to reflect that condition number 2, which talks about providing a professional landscape, will remain. That's our understanding from what we've heard as far as conditions to include. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my comment, in this particular project, if the house was canary yellow and it had white vinyl windows, I wouldn't want the deck to match the house. but because of the style of the house, I mean, I think it still will blend in. The effort should be to blend it in, matching the house. Okay, thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Yu, does that satisfy your
Good.
conditions? Okay. We have a first and we have a second, right? We have a
I
motion.
made a motion, I didn't hear a
We
second.
have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Ellis, second by Board Member Yu, to approve with modified conditions to number 1, to have the guardrails match more closely to the house.
I would say match.
To match.
Okay. Match.
This will be roll call. Board Member Aliano?
No.
Board Member Ellis?
You're also picking up the other two?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I didn't
Yes.
clarify that. Yes.
Thank you, yes.
Okay. Board Member Ellis?
Yes.
Board Member Insua?
A thought just came to mind.
Can't have a thought just like that. Please, Chair.
So I want to approve it, but there's an element that I just saw that could satisfy what Mr. Aliano was saying concerning the appearance of it being a bit massive, especially horizontal, since it's close to 71 feet or so. But I want to approve it, but I also want to say, hey, maybe this is something that could be talked about quickly.
Board Member Insua, you're more than welcome to go ahead and make a suggestion, and if Board Member Ellis and Board Member Yu so wish to amend their motion, they may do
Okay.
so, or just,
I would be happy to withdraw the motion to let him make a comment, and if we go back into it.
why
I don't want
why don't we just go ahead and listen
Thank
to
you.
the suggestion
Okay.
instead first?
I think for me, the design is fine. It is, and as I mentioned before, it's a very big design. And when you look at it big and you look at it vertical, it's a large element. What if, to help break that up, when we look at the side wall here, what if they introduce the real small, so here's the slope. Our calculations are, they're averaging between 63% and 68% slope. What if just in front of this slope is going down like this? What if in this element right in here, we built a little pony wall, and I don't want to draw on this, but we built a little pony wall, then we landscaped the front of this even more to help this, because this is on the side, but we actually introduced a little bit more soil material. Then this little pony wall, the slope can continue with that. So an element, in other words, I've broken up this element with a little pony wall that could follow a little bit of the contours of the site that Mr. Aliano is saying, and then landscape that stuff with more significant landscape, because we have new plant material, and help that vertical massing. If that's not good, then I would support this project as submitted. But I thought that could help.
A question for you, Mr. Insua. As you indicated, building that wall and basically building it up and then having a secondary tier of landscaping along there, could we achieve the same purpose by not incurring the cost of the wall, but at the same time putting those endeavors into more mature trees along the bottom there? So in other words, we condition.
Yeah. My concern is that if this chaparral kind of, oops, touched it again, this material, if you notice, is not real great for growing larger green stuff. But if we introduce that little wall, we can then put in new plant material that'll have more opportunity to grow. That was why I thought.
New topsoil? Or?
Yeah, you have now more.
Yeah, we got a couple feet of
You
topsoil.
can, yeah, right now the natural slope goes like this, and not a lot of big stuff grows up there. But if we add a little pony wall here, then you get an opportunity for more substantial tree growth, plant growth. Then you come back in here with this lower pony wall, regrade that, and then put in the lower shrubs.
But because you've introduced a planter-like
Yeah, in front
element
of the thing,
that
following the
has
slope.
that has better topsoil in there.
Yes, so you have more depth of potential slope. But either way, I'm good with the project.
I understand. I was just wondering.
So
Okay.
since we're discussing, I mean, certainly that's something that could make it feel more gradual rather than, but it won't make me change my vote. I think I have a real issue with the whole premise. I understand the concern of the owner, that's definitely understandable, but I think that there's probably other ways to achieve safety without having to build something like this. I'm just not convinced that this is the best solution. That's really what I'm sort of reacting against. I'm not arguing the safety of it for the children and the family. Certainly that's legitimate cause for doing whatever you need to do to make it work for your family. I don't see enough on the wall that really convinces me that this has been fully studied and it's really the only best solution that you can achieve to solve your problem. So that's why I'm voting against it.
So now it's up to Board Member Ellis and Board Member Yu to either go ahead and continue with the original motion.
I'm okay with presenting it as a secondary option for them to consider. I don't think it's a condition that I would.
So in this case, what you could do is just make an
Amendment.
amend your
Amend
original
motion.
motion to
Right.
include that
As a consideration.
as a consideration.
And I would do that.
Okay.
Yes.
So, as noted by staff, then.
Mr. Joe, roll call?
Sorry about that.
He was trying to figure out what the hell we're talking about.
He's quickly writing this additional consideration.
This will be roll call. Board Member Aliano.
Still no.
Board Member Ellis.
Yes.
Board Member Insua.
Yes.
Board Member Yu.
Yes.
Chairperson Simonian.
Yes.
So we have a 4-1 vote to approve with modified condition in number 1, and with a consideration with the funny wall with landscaping.
For that particular consideration.
Right.
Great. We have one more case this evening, so I'm wondering if we could take a 10-minute break and come back for our largest project of the evening.
How about
10 or
5?
minutes?
We could say 5.
Right.
I'll turn into 10. Sure. 5 minutes it is.
We're back.
We are back. Welcome back. Our last case of the evening is 1-PDR-2008-060-A, and the address is 331 through 343 West Doran Street. And Mr. Kraus is our planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The project before you tonight is case number 1-PDR-2008-60-A. This is a first-time submittal for final review. Project site is located at 341 through 343 West Doran Street, and it's between Columbus and Central Avenue. This zoning is R1250, high-density residential, and this project here is a affordable housing project that the City of Glendale's Housing Authority is working in conjunction with the developer on. A variance was approved for the project, and that was to allow 4 stories, although the building is really actually only 3 stories. It's the garage podium towards the back of the property that extends more than 3 feet above the grade, so it was considered a story under the zoning code, but it's actually only a 3-story building. And that was approved on November 19th of this year by the zoning administrator, who also adopted the mitigated negative declaration for the project, as well as approved a parking concession under the state density bonus law. The project involves the development of 60 affordable home ownership units, and that includes the rehabilitation of 3 existing single-family residences that are located in the southwest corner of the property, and 57 new units that would be located in 5 new buildings. The existing buildings are currently 1-story, and then the new buildings would include both 2-story and 3-story elements. The project includes 3 separate open space areas, or common open space areas, for the new residents of the project, as well as a approximate half-acre park that would be located on the the southeast corner, and that's going to be open space both for the residents, and also eventually that would be deeded back to the city as a public park once the project's completed. And there's 117 parking spaces that's provided in the semi-subterranean parking garage. And the garage is actually located in the back portion of the property, so the 3 existing residential units, the park, and then the 2 new units directly behind the 3 single-family units will be at grade, so there's no parking below that area of the project. The access for the parking is off the back alley, and that's in the northwest corner of the property. Basically, staff supports the project and recommends that the board approve the project as submitted. And that concludes my presentation. If you'd like more clarification, I can go up and point out a few things on a site plan if you'd like.
Please do.
The project's right here. This is going to be the dedicated open space. I know you have the 3 existing single-family residential units right here in front along Dorn Street. And these are actually set back 32 feet from the property, so there's a pretty large green space that will be provided there. These 2 new structures are both going to be 2-story in height, and they have a new court that will be located here. So these units will face onto it, as well as some of the units in this new structure here as well. This has both 2 and I think it has a 3-story, small 3-story element on that building as well. And on this detached building here, there's a small 3-story element. And then there's this kind of larger E-shaped building that's going to be along the back side of the property with 2 separate courts that these units will face on. There's this court B and C. So there's 3. These are the 3 courts that will be included as part of the project, along with this larger open space area. Here's, as I pointed out, the parking structure will be located towards the back of the property, which would allow for more mature trees in the park space and also in this open space area in Court A. And over here we have your elevation drawings. These are the 3 existing single-family units, and then there's just various elevations here. It's really kind of difficult to get them on one page just because the actual rear property, this building right here, is approximately 270 feet long, so it's hard to get that on one sheet to be able to represent it that way. So I kind of broke it down into separate ones. So these don't have any color on these elevations, but those kind of give you the overall look of through the different courts. Each one has a marking of which court you're looking towards. So we asked the applicant to provide an elevation that showed a little bit more detail on what some of the elements were in the building. As you can see, it's going to have these wood shutters here, wood windows with wood surrounds on it as well, and some horizontal boards, and a little bit of fencing. This is kind of types and different styles of fencing that's going to be located throughout the project site. And lastly, we have the landscape plan. And this is, the Parks Department has been working with the landscape architect and trying to develop a plan so that when this is turned over to the Parks Department, it's kind of matches what their current standards are for the mini park use. So this is got some citrus plants down in here and just kind of general open space area to make it more usable by these residents that face onto the courts. So that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. We also have the architect, landscape architect, and the project developer, as long as they're represented from Community Development and Housing.
Mr. Krause, can you tell us a little bit about the history as far as those 3 residences and how they ended up getting incorporated into this scheme?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, these units were built in the early 1910, 1912, that kind of realm. So I think it was kind of the idea, and this is what the developer does quite often on their projects, is they rehabilitate historic buildings and do newer construction around, or they just do single-family reconstruction on historic buildings. So I think it was just kind of try to keep in the context of the neighborhood, kind of give it that more feel of what the neighborhood used to be. And that's why I kind of think that landscape architect can speak more closely to this, is why they're proposing this kind of maybe like a citrus garden here to kind of go with more the kind of how Glendale started kind of element back in the early 1900s, 1800s. So they got a row of trees on here too to try to mimic that kind of early lifestyle. So I think it was kind of direction by council to maintain those 3 buildings and try to develop around it and see what they can do.
I see. And the park looks like it has some sort of an elliptical track. Is that what?
Yeah, I believe this is going to be like
a walkway.
Well, I guess I don't decomposed or what, I'm not sure what you call that, granite or something like that around this area. And this is going to be slightly depressed, this area in here, by maybe like 18 inches or so.
I see.
So it's going to be trying to use that as part of maintaining some of the flow, the rainfall, to keep it on site at the park.
Oh, that's a retention pond.
It's not set up that way, but it can be designed to be able to retain water on site.
I see.
Okay.
I have a question for you. Security-wise, are the houses, are the units, are they separated out security-wise? I mean, is it public can go into the park, it's a public area of the park? Am I going to be able to, is it free access back into the units, or are they?
Well, it's kind of easier to show on here. I guess I'm not sure exactly where the fencing will be, but they're going to have fencing along here. It's going to separate the park, like on these 2 levels right here. So the access to the residents will have gates at the park side. So if you want to,
Okay.
the residents can access the park easily, but no one in the park can really get into the residents.
Yeah, I didn't see those either. Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Out of curiosity, these are affordable housing units. Are they low or moderate, do you know?
I believe they're low and moderate. Yeah.
Low and moderate.
So the 57 units will be low and moderate, and then the 3 single families will be market rate, I believe. Is that correct?
Are they rentals or for sale?
Of ownership, for sale.
For sale.
And
So
do you
it's a
know what?
condominium project.
Do you know what price ranges they're?
I don't have an idea. We might ask developer that could address that.
Can I buy one? Where's the
You
list?
have to have a certain level of income.
Oh, believe me, we're working toward it.
Architects at the minimum, easily.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Just hang with the economy for another 6 months.
Exactly.
We're there.
Questions for staff?
No. Thank you.
Should we just go back on that side?
Very good. We have a few speakers. We have the architect, Jingbo Liu, or the applicant. Who would like to go first? The applicant.
If I may,
Charles Lohman.
yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Charles Loveman. I'm the Executive Director of Heritage Housing Partners. I think what I'll do is just explain a little bit about our organization and answer some of your questions about pricing and sort of the project program, and then introduce the architect and the landscape architect to take your questions. Heritage Housing Partners is a nonprofit affordable homeownership developer. We're based in Pasadena. We were actually started as a spin-off of Pasadena Heritage, which is an historic preservation advocacy organization. Pasadena Heritage created HHP to develop affordable homeownership housing in historic buildings. We celebrated our 10th anniversary this year. So we sort of got, our track record is acquiring and preserving historic buildings just such as the ones that are on the site currently, and fixing them up to Secretary of Interior standards and selling them to first-time income qualified home buyers. As we've grown over the years, we've taken on more ambitious projects that blend new construction with historic preservation. So that's this project. We've been working with the city's housing authority for some time now to put together the plans and financing for this project. It's a 2-acre site, as Eric described. We acquired 3 years ago this 1-acre piece here. So we already own that. The second 1-acre piece, which is the surface parking lot piece to the east, and then the lawn in front of that, the city currently owns, and we have the ultimate right to purchase it under an exclusive negotiating agreement that hopefully will lead to a contract with the city. And then, as Eric mentioned, we have an open space requirement, and so as fulfillment of the open space requirement, we sort of evolved into the idea of putting all the open space requirements into that half-acre publicly accessible open space in the front corner, and that would be designed to city mini park standards and then ultimately deeded over to the city. We have paid a lot of attention to that edge between the future public park and our project, and how security gates and so forth work, while also trying to be inviting. And out of the total 60 units, the 3 existing historic units will be sold at market. The other 57 are low and moderate income units. The low income units will sell for about $150,000 a unit on average. The mods will sell for about $250,000 on average. And it's a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and then one of the historic houses is a 4-bedroom unit. Most of them are 2 and 3 bedroom units, and our typical buyer would probably be a family with younger kids, which is why we want to also create courtyards within the project itself with grass and soft play space, so that the young kids can run around, as well as have the option to go into the community open space. I will introduce the architect for the project, Jingbo Liu of J. Liu Architects, and we're also here tonight with Evan Mather with Calvin Abe, our landscape architects. So we're happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jingbo Liu, the architect.
Good evening. My name is Jingbo Liu. I'm with J. Liu Architect. I'm here to simply answer any design-related questions.
Do we have any questions for the architect as of this moment?
Just a quick question. All the parking is in the lower,
Yes.
including for the 3 units that are existing?
It's all in the lower portion of the surrounding parking lot.
Right.
Underneath the 2 courts.
Okay, so then the residents of those houses would go underneath and come out, I think, I was trying to locate it right around there.
There's 2 elevators. One elevator is underneath this corner of the building, and another one is underneath this.
Right.
So this elevator will serve access to the garage for this courtyard B and courtyard A. So this is a centrally located locations. And this elevator is going to serve courtyard C.
I see. Okay.
So there's some tandem parking then on the, I guess would be the north side.
Yes. The tenant parking will allocate it to one
particular unit, right? So it's the same.
Yes.
Okay.
That is provide parking efficiencies that reduce the size of the garage.
And I'm trying to understand, on these units, I guess the units that are facing here, do you enter from here or do you enter from here?
It's all units are entered from the courtyard, except the 3 units in the front. They have the original front entrance.
So, and then these have street frontage, and then the rest of them they're all facing inward.
Yes.
So this middle aisle, that's basically the back.
Well,
actually, the cemeteries I see here.
Yeah, this middle access road is serving as access road from West Durant Street
Right.
into the project. Also, it serves as access to certain units.
Those 4,
1,
right?
2, 3, 4 facing the
Right.
street. They both have access from central access path and also have the back access from the.
Okay, so they can go into these courtyards from the back, but that's not the main entrance. You guys see there's a kitchen, so the kitchens are facing the courtyards.
Yeah, either enter through kitchen or dining room.
Okay.
Are these flats 1-story or they're townhouses?
They're a combination of flats, townhomes, and walk-ups. We call it stacked over the unit stacked on top of a flat.
I see. And as far as the ground level is concerned, are some townhomes located on the ground level?
Yes.
I see. And then there's some flats?
Yes.
Located, I see.
So the shutters are all operable. They have actual hardware.
Yes.
And what about the windows? I didn't see any notes. The windows, what kind of windows are you using?
There'll be wood windows and
Really?
Wow.
Wood with metal clad or wood?
No, just wood windows.
Really?
We have done several projects with wood windows. We have very successful experience with.
Well, you should talk to the other applicants.
I was going to, but I was
Maybe there's
holding
a
back.
deal they could get on a lot of windows all at once.
We had just recently done a project in Pasadena. It's called Pharaoh's Court. It was similar to this project. It's all wood windows.
So they're all painted, though. They're
Painted
painted on the
windows.
exterior now for maintenance. Okay.
That was all from Jeld-1.
Very nice.
What was the name of that project?
Jeld-1?
No, the name of the project in Pasadena.
Fair Oaks Court.
Fair Oaks Courts.
And then you have cement board fiber sort of.
Yes, the exterior finish has 2 materials. One is fiber cement boards. Mostly, it's all horizontally laid and with this closer spacing to make it closer to the historic bungalow styles, and a lower portion of it mostly are stuccos.
Yeah.
And also, we use the fiber cement boards and stuccos to break up the building mass.
And all the posts are all wood that are painted.
Yeah.
Painted wood.
Painted wood.
So you're using a lot of really nice, simple detail of it. Very nicely done. And how about the railing? Is that a wood?
Wood railings. It's all wood railings.
It's all wood?
Yes.
Okay. Painted. And you got shingles on the roof?
Yes.
Just asphalt shingles, right? Heavyweight?
We're we're going to apply
Photovoltaic.
shingles for some of the buildings and to.
Really? That's awesome.
We're working in partnership with
We
Glendale.
can't have two people speaking at the same time because it's being recorded.
I would like to have the older developer, Charles Loveman, to iterate the
Okay. So you could come up, say your name for the record.
Charles
This is
Loveman.
like the Senate. You have to give time and.
We're working in partnership with Glendale Water and Power to try and put solar on the roof, so maybe the sort of the newer solar shingles or maybe solar panels.
Are you pursuing any LEED certification for the building?
I think we're pursuing different energy sustain, different categories. I don't know if it's going to be LEED. I think there's a Greenpoint Rained is I think the system that we're in, and then the idea for the solar is that we think that we can generate enough power from the roof to power the entire common area in the garage.
So now these photovoltaic, what do they? We have a picture here, but is that really what it looks like when it's? It says photovoltaic roof shingles.
Yeah, that's the intent we will apply to it. We
You would state your name for the record.
Chingba Lu, the architect.
So and you will put that obviously facing south on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, the roof plan shows sort of the locations. They're all pointing south. So.
Yeah, since there's a
Interesting.
the roof are broken down into many pieces. There's many opportunities to install photovoltaic shingles on the south-facing roofs.
I see. So they're panels, they're not really shingles.
We would like to use shingles.
But your roof plan shows panels.
What?
I think they're still working it out.
Yes.
To be determined.
To be determined.
Just as a point, as you consider the photovoltaic panels or shingles, that is an element that, as a city or a design review board, we actually have limited authority on because of state legislation.
So let's move on. That's what you're saying.
I have one question about access.
Brought up because it's very curious. That
There's one entrance exit to the parking structure that's off the alley, is that right?
Yes.
Show this.
And the alleys, I guess the other apartment buildings on that street, do you know, are they access off the alley too, or?
All the apartment buildings are access to the alley. As back to the building right next to us in this corner, is the parking access.
That's where their parking access is too also.
Well, all the buildings are access from.
Are they? Okay.
And if you could look at the drawings.
Yeah, I just noticed that it's a surface lot. It's a surface lot there. Right.
And the building next to the left of the surface lot is a parking access.
In the back.
In the back.
There you go. Do we have any more questions for the architect? Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this case? If so, approach the podium, state your name for the record, and then fill out one of those 3x5 cards and then turn it in later.
I'm Evan Mather with Abe Landscape Architects for the landscape architect for the project, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the landscape design.
I got a question. Where's your herb garden? I couldn't find it.
The herb gardens are an element, well, two things. It was brought up earlier about the style of the landscape design was harkening back to the early 1900s, kind of the agricultural theme of Glendale as it existed at that time. So one of the things that we want to do is develop a palette, a plant palette and a materials palette that harken to that era. So some of the plants we're using, like citrus and herbs, are used throughout the project. When we say herb gardens, there are designated herb gardens in the public park area, but we didn't specify specific public, or we didn't set aside specific herb gardens within the development, but we are using herb plants as planting material.
I see.
The plan that you're proposing is that one, not what's on the rendering, right?
Correct. This is our landscape plan, not what is shown on the rendering.
was a nice package.
Do you have any more questions for the landscape architect?
No, sir, I do. We may struggle putting the Magnolia grandiflora on top of a deck. There's a 48-inch box that grows to 25 feet, but I'm sure you'll work it out.
We've been working with the architect as far as where the depressions will go in the podium slab to accommodate
Excellent.
that.
Good. On top of your parking space.
Good answer.
Thank you. Mr. Lowerman, in reference to the private open spaces in the project, have you provided all the required private open spaces for the units?
I would defer to Eric.
Mr. Chair, they've all the landscaping and private outdoor open space and common space all meets zoning code without the actual half-acre park space itself. If you took that away, they'd still meet the code with what they're providing.
Very good. Thank you. Do we have any more, I don't believe we have any more speakers from the audience. So that said, we'll go ahead and close the public portion. And who would like to go first?
I can go first.
There you go, Mr. Aliano.
I don't have a lot to say, except good things.
That's good.
I have to say, it's so nice to get a project that just it works. Everything works. I mean, there's nothing I can say. Say, oh, move this here, move there. It's just the way it should be, and it's really wonderful to see a team of people that put together a project like this and that will really embellish the city and serve a community. Stylistically, I think you've kind of, just talking with the architect or hearing, his comments on how everything is carried through, and even the materials, the windows, all wood, and the siding, everything has been worked out. And I just want to say thank you for a wonderful project. Make our job really easy.
Thank you, Mr. Aliano. Mr. Yu?
I too want to commend the team that you put together. I think obviously you guys will work well together, and it's a talented group, and I think that it shows in the sort of the renderings and all the exhibits that you provided. And I too concur. It's a project where when we start asking ourselves questions of, well, what about this, what about that, it's answered in the exhibits as we walk through them. And we don't have to kind of just, what about this, what about that? Because it defeats the purpose of actually, seeing the project and enjoying it. It's good to see that the two lots, or the three that are adjoining, are sort of, you're able to utilize them, because as single lots there, you can see on the sort of the neighboring units, it's just these huge bars that go from street to alley, and then you have the parking. And so it's created that way. And so it's good to see that you have those parcels together, and it creates a mass, and it's big enough that it makes an impact on that area. And I also think it's great that it's sort of near, central and in the main areas where, if they do work there or whatever, then it's a lot of walking around that can happen, and it's not just isolated somewhere else in Glendale where you really have to take a car to get back in. The park idea makes perfect sense to me, and it works out well. I'm sure there were a lot of legalese that went back and forth, but it's good to see it there. I didn't go through every crevice of the design, because I think you look at certain things and you realize that there's a certain sense that of decision making that went into the thing, and so we don't have to scrutinize every little piece of it. And I think that the materials are good. The way they're put together, the court and the sensitivity that went into that, it's well appreciated by myself up here, and I'm sure a lot of the colleagues here. So I think it's a job well done. Thanks.
Mr. Insua?
Done well.
Enough said. Mr. Ellis?
I'll echo everything. I guess my only comment after looking at it, and I do congratulate to you, and I think to staff, too, and to the city for putting this type of a project forward, because for so many years there have been projects like the buildings on either side of it, as you can see on the site plan. Can you take a couple of those with you as you're doing it? I guess, and I don't know if there's a solution. I don't know if if I was going to buy one of the three houses in front, I'd sure like a place to park my car with my house. And I understand that we're moving into the different times things, but just looking at that street, the apartment dwellers are all parking out there, and I don't know, actually, there are no garages to those three houses. Is that right? No. Anyway, I think you guys have done an excellent job, and it'll be definitely an asset to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. I'd like to congratulate the team as well. You've done a stellar job putting a great package together. And just looking at the overall layout and what you described, I think it's wonderful that you use these courtyards as the entrances to the units. And so there's a way for the community to interact with one another, the residents to interact with one another. So they come in, they see each other every day. There's a level of safety that's associated with that as well. You have 86,000 square feet of land, and you were able to accommodate it with 57 units, which is well below what was allowed to you by code. And at the same time, it is just a very open layout. And what I mean by that is so many times you get an affordable housing project that is 4 levels over a podium. You have these shotgun loaded corridors that basically don't have any light or air inside of them, and it's so refreshing to get this cluster type of a layout, which is much more expensive to build. If you look at it, you have so many more elevations and you have so many more details to worry about, but the developer and the architect are basically putting forth a great effort to add to the city. So I think that's just wonderful of you to do that. Overall, it's going to be a great addition to this city, and I think the people that are going to be living in these units will be very happy and they'll be proud to own one of these units, because it sure doesn't look like an affordable housing project to me. Not at all. You have operable shutters and wood windows and a lot of environmental aspects and a park outside. I mean, that's just wonderful. You could just go outside and get some fresh air whenever you want in an open setting. As far as the parking is concerned, overall underneath the podium where you have the parking for the multifamily, I think that's great. I also had some concerns, as Mr. Ellis pointed out, about the parking for the homes, but it's just so minor. Overall, you've done a great job. I'm sure there were some good reasons for that. And so we'll just leave it at that. So I could support this project as is. Great material boards, by the way.
Yeah, that's the best part.
Chair Simonian, I just want to say that this particular team made planning staff's job very easy, as did Mike Fortney of Community Development and Housing, and the director, Madeline. They've spent a lot of time and energy on the project and should be applauded and recognized for their hard work. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
And I think it would be wonderful if staff could actually put this as one of those better projects to point out to people.
Done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Great.
I'll move acceptance of the project with the comments from staff. I don't believe there were any.
Second that.
There weren't.
Who seconded that?
You.
Yeah. So I have a motion by Board Member Ellis, second by...
I second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Aliano.
Aliano,
I'm
second by
sorry.
Aliano.
Yeah.
Roll call. Board Member Aliano?
Yes.
Board Member Ellis?
Yes.
Board Member Insua?
Yes.
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Chairman Simonian?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is the first unanimous vote
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah, thanks for waiting to the end.
Thanks for uniting the
It
group
was worth the
again.
wait.
Our next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from October 30, 2008.
Correct. And only to make note, Board Member Eliano, Board Member Ellis, and Board Member Simonian were present. Board Member Insua and you were absent.
Hey, where were you guys? Oh,
Who were you
excuse
guys?
me.
Yes.
Were we supposed to approve the...
Mitigated negative declaration? I think we
No,
were.
actually, it
Okay.
was, well, you can recognize that, but it was already adopted by... the
Okay,
zoning
I remember the last time we had one, we needed to approve it, and I'm sorry. Thank you.
Recognized.
Recognize it.
I'll move acceptance of the minutes as presented for Thursday, October 30.
Have a motion by Board Member Ellis. And who would like to, would Mr. Eliano second it? All right, thank you, Mr. Eliano. Board Member Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Eliano?
Yes.
Chairperson Simonian?
Yes.
The motion passes 3-0.
Next item on the agenda is any board business or discussions?
We do not have any announcements, but it's before.
Nothing on our end. I think we just have perhaps, two more? Well, are we just going to have one more this year, right, on December 18?
Correct.
Yeah, I think we only.
Your very last meeting of 2008 is on December 18th.
Let me ask you a quick question while we're on that meeting thing. I actually was.
Board Member Eliano will not be at the meeting.
I was surprised that we actually met because I thought it would have been Board Tuesday. And how does that happen? I mean, is
Again, because, and this is what happened, the reason,
Right.
one of the reasons why that case this evening was actually continued for 1 week is simply because the Thanksgiving Day holiday,
Right.
instead of having that ARC meeting for board number 2, it was postponed. You were postponed then. So unfortunately, everything got shifted a week back. And yes, board member
So my
Inslee.
question then is, on my appointment calendar, electronic,
Correct.
I automatically have every 2 weeks.
Yes.
I
doesn't
now need
work.
to change that.
Correct.
From now on, this is our day, and every 2 weeks from now.
Correct. Well, no, and let me just make note of it.
Christmas is going to
Oh, wait,
stay.
another one.
Actually, I know, the first day.
In January.
In
when-
January, the very first day is January the 8th.
And then 2 weeks after that.
And then after that, you're on board every 2 weeks. So on biweekly, if you're updating your Outlook calendars,
January the whole-
starting on January the
hold on.
8th, you can mark it down in your Outlook calendars every 2 weeks.
Somehow I think you'll send me a notice.
We will definitely send you a notice.
So in January, we start when now?
January
On January 8th,
8th.
you'll send it, you'll make note of it every 2 weeks. And unfortunately, we run into the same.
And actually, in January, it goes back to the old schedule.
Yes.
Yes, so I don't have to do anything.
But unfortunately, come
skip
next
this one.
Thanksgiving,
Next thing.
we run into the same.
Well,
the same
there's an election in April, so
You never know.
you'll run into that. Who knows if we will?
All right, but no. So your very last meeting will be in 2 weeks on December 18th, and your first meeting of 2009 will be on January.
January the 8th. Thank
Well,
you.
happy holidays
Okay.
to everybody.
Happy
I will have to miss the next meeting.
Mr.
Have a
Eliano will
wonderful
not be here.
trip.
No, that's fine. Happy holidays to everybody.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas to you.
Everybody.
You can bring us all present back in January.
Yeah, we'll accept the late present. We're fine with that.
All right. And do I have a motion for adjournment at 7:55?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Insua. All in favor?
Aye. Aye, aye, aye.
I have the minutes here signed.